Welcome. I'm sitting in a 2025 Cadillac CT5. Now, luxury sports sedans, as you guys probably know, are no longer the most popular segment in North America. Although I'm not sure, maybe they were never the most popular in North America, but crossovers, SUVs, they've kind of taken over. And we can see this by the CT5's sales figures. They peaked a few years ago, but 2025 brings a lot of updates, and sales have already gone up. So that's the reason for an update. There's a bunch of changes on the exterior and on the interior. We have this brand new 33-inch 9K widescreen in here, which I'll get to in a second. But first, let's start on the exterior. Cadillac has always had this kind of edgy design, or at least for the past 20 to 25 years, and they've kept it here. They've kind of sculpted, I guess you could say, the front bumper a little bit more, made it more aggressive, especially here on the sport trim that I'm driving. There is a difference between the premium luxury front bumper and the sport trim here. This one gets the black mesh grille. It's all blacked out up there, but the grille goes lower down. It's a little bit wider. There's more room for air down there to get in. And then we have the vertical running lights. I think the previous model looked just as good as this. It's just a little bit different. This design really comes alive when you do look at the CT5 Blackwing, which is of course the top spec, V8 from the Corvette, all that. But today I just want to figure out if the base CT5 here with a bunch of options is a worthwhile contender versus stuff like the TLX, the G70, the Mercedes C300, which I'll get to later as well. But this one's also been spec'd with the 19-inch black wheels with the red accents. Wow. Great wheel design. Sometimes the press cars I drive do not have the greatest spec, or do not come in the greatest spec, but this one's awesome. I think these wheels are the best wheels you can spec for the CT5 non-Blackwing models. So that looks good. It's in this crystal white. And then under the hood is the same 2-liter turbocharged inline 4 as it was before, 237 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque here. Now the sport model, interestingly enough, is not able to be spec'd with the 3-liter twin-turbo V6, which is a detuned version of what you would find in the CT5-V. And the great thing is the CT5 can be spec'd both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. You can't say that about a ton of the competition up here in Canada. The IS300 can't spec that rear-wheel drive. TLX can't get it front-wheel drive. Not that I would want that. But the reason for that is that, of course, this inline 4 is longitudinally mounted versus something like the TLX, which is transverse mounted, even though the TLX has a really trick rear diff if you go for the Type S. But nonetheless, handles great. Weight balance is awesome, and it's kind of interesting because on one hand you think, okay, it's a Cadillac, it's leaning luxury, absolutely. And I feel that in the suspension. The steering rack isn't crazy quick or twitchy. The wheel itself is massive, great for like one-hand cruising on the freeway. But then you dip it into a corner and it's light on its feet. You toss this in, it feels more confident than the TLX, especially just on that initial turn in. More steering feel than a C300. And as far as the engine goes, paired with the 10-speed auto here, it's fine. You know, the engine's not offensive, but it's not inspiring either. Absolutely not. It's a little bit buzzy. We've got a couple drive modes here. We could put it in tour. It's really quiet, just leaving it automatic. Road noise is great. These mirrors are super sleek too, so wind noise is exactly what you would expect out of a luxury product. And the transmission's good, it's smooth. It's no dual clutch, that's for sure. So it's not as snappy on the downshifts and whatnot. Sport, which does pump in some fake audio, albeit not that offensive. It's pretty mild as far as fake sounds go. And then of course we've got my mode, which I can customize my steering feel, make it light or heavy. I can customize my brake feel, which I actually really love. That doesn't change too much. I do love the CT5's brake feel. It is firmer, the pedal travel isn't too long, and it doesn't change up too much in sport, doesn't get twitchy. It's really easy to come to a stop smoothly. All right, let's put it in sport. We'll do a little 0 to 60 miles an hour run here. Takes a second for the turbo to spool up. Wow, it short shifts at 5,500 RPM. Redline here says about 6,300 RPM, so almost 1,000 RPM early. But that just goes to show, you know, this is a light-to-light kind of city torque curve. What I mean by that is the turbo spools up really quick, the torque ramp up is really low in the RPM band, and then there's not much top end. So again, not an enthusiast engine. You know, it's a Cadillac. You'd think maybe that it would like waft over bumps and it would be really loose and kind of lazy, but it's not. It's the CT5 is still underneath at the core a precise and balanced vehicle. It's quick enough and it's quiet. If you like quiet, if you do not want to think about the engine at all, this is the trim to get. This is the engine to get, absolutely. I would personally get the premium luxury trim and spec the twin turbo V6, but I'll get to pricing at the end and we'll go over all of that. But let's get to the interior. So of course you've got the key fob here. You can lock it, unlock it, remote start, trunk, all that kind of stuff, but you can also use the My Cadillac app. I would show it to you guys right now, but I don't have service out here. So I can't use it without internet connection, but you can remote start it. It's got a vehicle locator on there too. And then it's got a few other things. You can check tire pressures, how many kilometers left in the fuel tank and stuff like that. And before I forget, I should have mentioned this earlier, but one of the best things about the CT5 is getting in and out. I love that these handles aren't like a cheap plastic feeling handle that pops out and goes back in. It's just a little button on the inside there that you press and the door opens. So first impressions when you step up to the CT5 is great, but let's go to the trunk. So trunk space compared to the competition, it pretty much slots itself right in the center. So it doesn't have quite as much trunk space as something like the TLX, but it's got more than the G70 and more than the Lexus IS. Okay, so this is where the CT5 kind of rises above a lot of the competition. The user experience here, full stop, better than the TLX, better than the G70, better than the Lexus IS 300. We'll start with the climate control. It's perfect. Just a row of physical controls here. A lot of other manufacturers who updated or came out with a new model in the last year or two have gone completely touchscreen, but within, I feel like the last couple years, a lot of people, including myself, are becoming more vocal about, hey, we don't want haptic feedback. Even in upscale vehicles like Ferrari, they just switch back on the 296 to physical controls. We want a certain number of like tactile, nice feeling stuff, especially in a luxury car. You still have the option on the touch screen to open it up and do it that way if you want. And then you also have a knob down here in the center to control the screen. But cup holders, yeah, I wish they were deeper. They're not deep enough. That's fine. Center console here opens up to the side. And then we come to the screen here, okay? 33 inches, of course, that's width. On the left here, starting over here, we've got our gauge options. We've got just a standard gauge display, really minimalist. We've got the map. The map takes up the entire display. I was worried too that if we connect via Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which is standard and wireless, that the map for the phone integration would not come up, but it does. So good job, Cadillac. The new screen here, I have almost nothing bad to say about it. It's incredibly responsive, and as you guys can see with the Google Maps, it's got Google built in. So it's got Alexa, it's got Google Assistant, it's got the Play Store, so you'll be able to download apps and stuff. It's got Google News. Like I said, it's easier to use than the G70, the TLX, the IS. The only one where it's right on par with is the Mercedes C300. I'll take this climate control over the C300's climate control, but the C300 user experience is right up here with the CT5. The bad part, the downside to having a screen that's not just a square, which it's like, on one hand, I don't just want a tablet stuck on the dash, but you try to integrate it a little bit nicer here, but then your phone integration only takes up 70% of the screen. So it's as big as it would be on a much smaller screen in some of the competition. The cameras are great here. We get standard heated seats here in the front, standard heated steering wheel. They say it has standard massage, and it does, but it's just pushing the lumbar in and out. It's nothing like an actual massage seat that you would get in some of the top tier models. If you upgrade to the leather trim, you get ventilated front seats. No heated seat option for the passengers though. That sucks. I do love this carbon trim. And another change they've made is the sound system. The upgraded sound system is now AKG instead of Bose. The bottoms of the doors, it's all like hard plastic down here. If you look, you can find stuff you don't like, but standard stuff is awesome here. And I left the best for last. Super Cruise. All CT5s get Super Cruise, which, if you don't know, is not just adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist, which most vehicles at this price point will steer for you for a limited time, and then you have to put your hands back on the wheel. Super Cruise, if it is on a road that it knows, that's most major highways and freeways, you can just keep your hands off. As long as this strip up here is green, you're good. And that goes along with the standard driver monitoring system here you get. But let's talk competition, let's talk price. All right, well, that's it, you guys. CT5 2025, a bunch of new changes, a bunch of standard tech. Starting price here is $53,000 Canadian or $49,000 US. For this sport trim that's effectively fully loaded, $73,000 Canadian or $63,000 USD. So an IS350 F Sport 3 is less money than this. A TLX Type S from Acura is less money than this. And most importantly, a CT5-V with no options is a little bit less than this. And you get, in all those, a ton more power, a ton more torque, and you get 2 more cylinders. So this really depends where you go. It's a luxury sport vehicle, right? So the ones I just mentioned, those all lean. They have a bunch of luxury features, but with these options here, they don't compare to this in terms of luxury features. But on the other side, they have more power, they have better suspension and stuff like that. And in the case of the TLX and, well, the CT5-V as well, they have limited slip diffs in the back. So here's what I would do. If you ditch the black wheels, which I do love, but if you ditch that, it's with some other options that are blacked out. It's like a $5,000 Canadian package. Ditch that, ditch the tech pack, which does add some really cool stuff. You've got the heads-up display and a bunch of other things. If you ditch those two, then you're down at a more reasonable level. And you still get, like I mentioned, as standard Super Cruise and all this stuff that makes like road trips and cross-country escapades so much better. That's it, you guys. Base CT5, good for road trips. If you're an enthusiast, you might want to spec it with the V6 or look elsewhere. So thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.